Waiting on a couple of people. Okay, great. We're live now. Hey guys, thank you for coming to this session. If you're here watching this video, it's probably because you're concerned that the school systems, public or private, are failing your children, and you've decided to take their education into your own hands. And you should be worried. If you were here on my stream the other day, or if you follow me on Instagram, you know about the yearly release data that has not changed since 1992 that says only about 15% of Black students graduate from high school knowing how to read and do math proficiently, and the numbers are even lower for other subjects. And although it's different for other minority groups, the highest that we see is 50% in Asian American students and about 39% in white American students. So no matter what ethnic group or no matter what color you are, it's important that you decide to take your child's education into your own hands, and that can be completely homeschooling them like some of us do here, or just homeschooling them in the mornings and the afternoons when they get back from school. The point is that you really need to add to what your children are getting from the school systems, public or private. So today I'm just going to do a basic video on how to get started. That's my most asked question, I think, on social media is, well, how do I even get started? It seems like really overwhelming. So I'm just going to tell you the basic steps in getting started, and I'm going to give you some free or super cheap curriculum to help guide you to get started. Now, I will say, since education is a huge field, there are hundreds of different curricular choices, different ways you can go, different styles of education. But when you get started, you kind of just want to jump in and get started. You don't want to have to pay for anything. You don't want to have to learn a bunch of new stuff. You just want to get started, and as you go, you're going to learn more, and then you'll be able to deviate from this little plan I've created. So the first step, I believe, and this is in teaching in general anyway. Okay, let's see. The first step is creating a vision for your child or for your students. And so you're thinking about here just kind of like a life goal. Like when I look at my children, this is what I think. I think I want my kids to be intelligent, confident, joyful learners, compassionate leaders who are equally knowledgeable and find joy in the arts and sciences and technology, engineering, mathematics, writing, reading, athletics, foreign language, and use their talents for the honor of God and to help people. So that's a pretty big vision. It's pretty well thought out, but to be honest, it's something I'm still developing, and you don't need to start there. Here's like a basic vision, right? Your child will be a creative child who loves learning, believes he or she can accomplish anything, and has the skills and knowledge to be able to do so. That's like pretty basic. And the reason why we need a vision is because there's so many choices along the way. Like, what curriculum should I use? What museums should we go to? Should they learn piano? What sports? What projects should we do? And if you don't have a vision, it's going to be really, really difficult for you to make decisions. Let me just give you an example. My sister, was homeschooling several of her kids, and there are so many different options. Let's just say with one child, she really likes art and she's into art. So our vision for that child for that year was for her just to really be able to explore the artistic side of her. So when we're thinking about curriculum choices and what matters, we're like, well, how does this relate back to our vision of having a child who is able to explore their artistic and their creativity? So we use that as kind of like a grounding point. So I would highly suggest that you just go with this like super basic vision of having a child who loves learning, who has skills and knowledge, and believes that they're able to accomplish anything, just to start out. Now, I'll have more videos down the line on like how to develop a more detailed vision for your program. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to be talking about, now that you have a vision, you need to know, well, how do we get there? We get there by using standards. And so this is an example of a standard. This is a kindergarten standard, and the first one is, okay, the child needs to be able to identify the front cover, back cover, and title page of a book. That's just like a pretty basic kindergarten standard. So if I didn't explain well before, you have your vision. Now, how are you going to get there? I want my kids to be like actively learning and have a lot of knowledge and skills. How do I get there? By using these certain standards that we have set. Now, I will say we want to use the highest possible standard. And to be honest, right now, the United States, it's not really a good example of the highest possible standards. There's a list that just came out of like the 10 best countries for education, and the United States is nowhere near on that list. So I actually pull what I'm teaching my kids from a mix of the United States Common Core standards and Finland's Common Core standards and the Canadian standards. So I do a mix, and I'll talk about that later. But for you, I think you should just start off with the Common Core standards. Here's another example. I think this must be 3rd grade. And the standard is basically that the child needs to know how to determine an unknown number in an equation. So for example, 8 plus what equals 11, they need to know how to fill in the blank. So you can find these standards, and most states have adopted Common Core now, so you can find these standards on the Common Core website, and it's just English, language arts, and math. So you're going to click on read the standards. I would go to download the standards. I find it's a little bit easier to read this way, or you can go on the right hand corner. Now there is some debate around Common Core standards, but just trust me, there's nothing wrong with the Common Core standards. The standards simply just tell you what to teach. They don't tell you how to teach, like, at all. And there's a huge misconception. Like, millions of people seem to think that the standards are telling you like how you're supposed to teach something. That's simply not true. However, if you do take a look at the state standards, and if I were you, I would go for Maryland, New York, maybe Pennsylvania, maybe, I would say maybe California, but I'm not exactly sure. Because these standards kind of define what students should know in a more concrete way. So the Common Core standards tend to be kind of broad, but the state standards tend to be a little bit more specific. And if you take a look at your state standards, you might have to like type in Google old Maryland state standards, and then they'll be like a little bit more specific, and they'll also have things like your physical education standards, your social studies standards, your science standards. So you'll be able to really see that in all subjects there are specific things that kids learn every single year. So in art, it might be they need to learn that if they like color harder, it's going to be a darker shade. If you do lighter, then there'll be lighter shades. So you can find all of those standards on your state website. And then there are others. There's also like the next generation science standards, which are kind of like the Common Core science standards. But I don't think that when you get started, you should just start with those, because you kind of have to know a little bit about teaching in order to really understand those. So I would highly suggest for math and English language arts, go here, and for everything else, go to your state. And if you're not sure if your state has really good standards, just go to the Maryland state standards. They're pretty good, and they're all up here. And so this is a picture of the first year of teaching. And I just want to let you guys know that the first year of teaching, we had the standards at least in our grade, but we didn't have any curriculum. Because once you know the standards, you have to teach them, right? Like once you know, okay, so the child has to learn how to multiply within like a given context or a word problem. Well, how do I teach them how to do that? That's curriculum. First year, we didn't have any curriculum, so we just had to think out in our minds, okay, well, how did we learn how to do that? This is how I'm going to teach them. What resources am I going to get? And we were pulling from all sorts of places online. So this is where curriculum comes in. It's funny to think that in, 2011, there are schools that literally don't have textbooks like ours, don't have any curriculum to give the teachers, and we're just kind of winging it, but that's the reality of the situation. This is why when people say, I'm not qualified to teach my child, I'm like, do you think that these schools are really qualified? We're up in here with no books, teaching kids off the whim. First year teaching, 3 months of training, So you're definitely qualified. However, if you get a curriculum, it can be really helpful. So now I'm going to show you some free curriculum, and then I'm going to try to take questions, but I'm kind of new to this type of live streaming, so I might not be able to. So Here is the free or cheap curriculum guide. Let me know if you can hear it. No sound? Oh no! Okay, then I'm just going to go back. Okay, I'm going to go back. Okay. Back. Okay, so sorry about that. You missed sound. Hopefully I can edit that part out when it comes to... Yeah, I can edit that part out actually in the YouTube editor. So let me restart the video and I'm just going to talk over it. Alright, so this is the free math curriculum that I would recommend. It's called Great Minds, Eureka Math. Go to their website. As you can see, it's the most widely used curriculum in America because it is free. And so I'm just showing you on screen here how do you actually get to the files. But the reason I like this is because not only is it free, but the teacher's guide is so amazing that you are basically learning how to teach as you are going through this. And you can see that they have lessons from pre-K all the way up to 12th grade. So there's no excuse for anyone when we're talking about math as to why you can't teach math at home, or really even for classroom teachers, because the information is all right here. This is a great resource, and they also have tons of learning videos. Now for reading, I would recommend just simply reading to your child, no matter what age they are, or reading with their child, pre-K or up to 12th grade when you're just getting started, because just trust me that the other standards are kind of all intertwined into just basically reading. And the reason why I just chose the Scholastic website to show you is not for you to buy books off of this website, but for you to get a good idea of what quality books are available. Reading A to Z, if you have an elementary to middle-ish school-aged child, is another great resource. It's not free. I think it's about $100 a year, but you can definitely split that between 2 or 3 people, and you can all log in, and they have level text. They have information on teaching a child how to read, but I also really like that they have information that they have these little books basically that you can print out. And once you print these books out, there are like questions. You're gonna see it in a second, but there are questions that they ask. There are essays, like short little essay questions for the older kids right there. You can either, so here you're seeing like the little leveled books that you can print out, and basically the levels correspond to a reading level. And I'm going to get more into like how you can determine your child's reading level in another video. But as you can see, there are worksheets that come right with it. So if this is like a really great sort of inexpensive way to just get started in reading if you have a child from like pre-K or K to 6th grade. Another great resource is the Florida Center for Reading Research. And if you go over here to their resources, they have really resources for basically elementary and middle. They do have some 12th grade stuff, but I definitely use this a lot in upper elementary, and I know the lower elementary teachers used it a lot too. And it's basically activities, like really good, high quality activities. So as you can see, like you are teaching the child here, like how to clap out syllables. It's all there. All you have to do is print and cut. And a lot of times the materials are like really basic. So here, for example, you're going to need like some small brown bags. You can use boxes, whatever. But for the most part, it's just like cutting and pasting and coloring and activities like that. Now for science, I would recommend doing a couple things. Either getting a season pass to your local science center, or something like that, or maybe sharing a pass with another family or friends, because for science, really the next generation science standards are about teaching a child how to think, and not really specifically about like specific things that they must learn. Now, if you do read the curriculum, if you do read the standards, you will see, yes, there are specific things that kids need to learn. But mostly when we're talking about we're talking about the future, right? Like 2030, 2040, 2050, what we're preparing our kids for. So we're really just trying to train our kids how to think. So that's what I would recommend for science. If you are like, no, I need something concrete, I need to print out stuff and have my kids do things like that, you can use a website called Brainpop or Brainpop Junior. Brainpop Junior is for the little kids, like K-3rd, and Brainpop is for the older kids, like 3rd or 4th through middle school. There's a lot of awesome information on this. It's another paid subscription. It's one that's used in schools across America. And they've got a lot of great material on here. I think the subscription is also about $100, but again, we definitely share our logins and passwords here in the teaching and homeschooling community. So as you can see, there's a ton of science stuff. If you even just did one video a day, this is enough to last you for a long time. Or one topic a week. And as you can see, there's vocabulary, there's worksheets that they can do, there's graphic organizers, there's also some other cool stuff that's paid, but definitely the basic subscription is very, very good. Next is social studies, and for pre-K through 8th, I think this is it's pre-K through 8. Yeah, but I wouldn't even hesitate to use it for some 9th graders too. But basically, this is Common Core social studies, and it's called Core Knowledge. So the website is coreknowledge.org. This is an amazing resource. Everything on here is free, and you're going to see, I'm going to click in a little bit, and you're going to see the amazing books. So we actually had these printed out at our school. But since it's free, you can just have it right there on your device, on your phone, on your laptop, on your iPad. I connected to my computer and project it. So here's the flip book. It's amazing. It's diverse. The teacher's guide is so intense. So you'll actually be learning a lot about how to teach kids. And then the images are bright, and the kids love it. It's a guided curriculum. It's basically a scripted curriculum. The workbooks come with it. You can just print off the workbooks. It's amazing. I would definitely go with Core Knowledge, Social Studies, and it's also language arts, as you can see. So they do teach things like verbs, nouns, usage, and things like that. So if you're one of those type of people who's like, oh, I want to teach writing, this, it's definitely in this curriculum. The final thing I want to say is make sure you do a pre-assessment, and I'm just showing ABC Mouse because this is the only free thing I could find. This website actually, this particular one was not working, but before you start teaching a child, especially in reading and math, you kind of want to know, what do they already know? You don't want to be teaching them verbs when they already know what a verb is. You don't want to be teaching a kid, the colors when they already know that. However, I will say that that's one part of it, but the other part of it is I find that a lot of parents and teachers, we kind of assume children know certain things, and they actually don't. So when I went and I had my kids take this ABC Mouse assessment, there's the pre-kindergarten and there's the kindergarten ready assessment, and then it goes all the way up to, I think, 8 years old. I found there were a lot of things that they missed because I wasn't pushing them hard enough, right? I just assumed. For example, it's going to tell you, have your child say their ABCs. Now, most of us are like, oh, yeah, my child knows their ABCs. Well, maybe your child can sing their ABCs, but can they say them slowly? Can they say the ABCs starting from F and going on? Maybe they can count to 10. Can they count to 10 backwards? Can they count to 10 starting from 4? And so it really shows you where the gaps in their learning and their education has been. So I would highly suggest starting out with the pre-assessment. And I'll talk more about pre-assessments and post-assessments later. But definitely, if you're able to, grab that free So I think it's like free 30 days or something like that. Make sure you cancel on time, because I didn't with ABC Mouse, and it's amazing. You just sit your kid in front of the computer for like 10 minutes a day. They're really short sessions, and they have math and reading. So that's it. That's the quick start guide. Do you guys have any questions? I'm going to jump over here. Hello. Hi, my 4-year-old is struggling to identify letters. I'm not sure if I'm doing the right thing, says the excellent teacher. Okay, so how are you teaching your 4-year-old, and how old is your 4-year-old? Because here's the thing. Yes, a lot of kids at 4, some kids may identify letters, but they really don't need to be able to fully identify letters until they're maybe kindergarten aged. And here in the United States, okay, that's 5 and 6, but in Finland, it's 7. So, your child has a few years to really be able to identify those letters. So, yeah, let me know what method are you using to teach letter identification. If it's something that, like, the child just doesn't like studying letters or doesn't like flashcards, I would say there are a lot of activities, especially on the Florida Center for Reading Research. I think it's fcrr.org. There's a lot of activities around letters, and they can pick letters from a bag, and they can switch with a friend or with you, and you like put out like some flour, and they draw their letters. So when we're talking about identifying, make sure it's not just like, here, see it and say it. Let them use letters. Another thing you can do is just slow it way down and do like 1 letter a week, right? If you just do 1 letter a week, then in 26 weeks, in half a year, they will know how to identify those letters. And that's actually what they do in schools. So I wouldn't be, too worried about that, but I would just make sure you monitor it. Let's see. Are you going to post this so I can go back and take notes? Yes, I am going to post it. I'm going to edit out that part that was kind of silent for you guys. So that's it. Hope you guys watch my next couple of videos I have coming up this week. So the first one is going to be everything your preschooler needs to know. And the second one is going to be everything your kindergartner needs to know. So what I did is I've taken those standards and I've kind of made them into a document. So that's like an easy checkoff list. And I also make them into little cards. And so what I do actually, because there's just so much stuff that they really need to know, like across so many different subjects, right? So I like just take my cards, and I have some in the car, and I have some at home, and keep some in my purse, so that when we're just chilling, when we're out of the post office, when we're grocery shopping, when we're driving, I can just pull out a card and like say, oh, I'm supposed to talk to you about the moon cycle. Well, let's talk about the moon cycle. So there's that coming up this week. I hope you guys watch it. So make sure you're subscribed, click notifications, so you know when the videos are coming out. They are coming out on weekdays this week. Did I miss resources for Afrocentric studies? No, not yet. That's a whole nother video. So just wait on that. I'm super excited about that. When would you say a child should be reading by? By 7. By 7, I think. It's really funny because a child can learn to read at 3, but they can also learn to read at 7, and they're not going to be behind anyone. Because in school, technically, K2 is considered lower elementary. So from kindergarten, 1st grade, and 2nd grade, that's when kids are learning how to read. And then 3 through 5 is upper elementary, and that's when they are learning from reading. So we start to transition into informational text. So really not by the ages of like 8 are kids really actually reading to gain information. So it's great if your kid is reading at 3 or 4 or 5, but if they're not reading until 6 or 7, that's okay. And also, like I've said before, the top countries in reading education, they don't teach their kids how to read at 3 and 4. They're playing around. I know that because I also feel this like pressure, like, oh, the kids got to know how to read, like by the time they're getting into kindergarten or 1st grade, but that's not necessarily true. As long as you have a plan. There are a bunch of things you can be teaching a child besides learning how to read. They can be playing, they can be learning about different things. So yeah. That's the age I would say, by 7. I'd say if you notice that there's like a specific problem in teaching a child how to read early on, sure, grab that problem early on. But if it's just because they're just bored or, you know, or you don't have the time to teach them, I don't think it's a big deal. Yeah. All right, any other questions? Let's see, we're at about 24 minutes here. So I'm going to end the stream now, go back and edit this video. Thank you guys for watching. Send me your questions through Instagram. I don't really check my email, and I try to reply on Instagram. So hope this has been helpful. See you later.